Yesterday at the 4:30 liturgy, we had a baptism for the Darlington family, little Christian Michael. They were so happy and overjoyed. And I'm meeting with a lot of other joyful people too this time of year, because as spring and summer are around the corner, I'm getting to meet with all of the engaged couples who are expecting their weddings this coming year. And there's a lot of joy in those meetings too. But there's a lot of other times in life too, aren't there? I received a call this week on the emergency line, and the message that was left was in a voice so quiet I almost couldn't hear. She said, "Father Scott, I am in the worst place I have ever been in my entire life, and I think you may be the only person who can help me." And when I heard that message, I thought of the first reading today. I thought of Job saying, "I don't think I'll ever see happiness again. I feel like a slave to misery. I don't see a way out of this." And other people and other situations come to mind too. I'm thinking of a woman in our community who last year lost her best friend and her daughter in separate incidents on the same day. I'm thinking of another woman I know who lost her spouse to suicide, and she wound up having to move to a different community because she couldn't manage the memories anymore. And I'm sure that you're thinking of someone right now too. And maybe you're even thinking of yourself, because this is where you have been lately. The name for this emotion is anguish. And we wish that it were not part of the human experience, but it is. It is part of the smorgasbord of human life. And many of us will eat from that smorgasbord at some point. One woman who lost her son described it like this. She said, "Father, I felt like I was in an ocean of pain, and I couldn't see the shore on either side." When you are in this kind of space, you know that you're suffering, and you try not to, but try as you will, you can't stop yourself from feeling the pain. You tell yourself to try to not miss whatever or whoever has been taken so much, but you can't do it. And this is what we hear about in the gospel today too. A woman who is right at the edge of her strength. She is Peter's mother-in-law, and she is so ill and weakened that it appears that she's at the end. And she's not the only one struggling in this story, because it says that there's all these people in town who are either sick or, as it says, possessed by demons. And a lot of us know what it's like to be possessed by a demon of some sort. And so they're all outside the door. And here is the line in the gospel that really gets my attention. All of these people are hurting, and it says the whole town was outside the door. Everyone is going through something. Everyone we meet, everyone we see is fighting some battle that we know nothing about. That's why it's so important to be as kind as possible at all times. So this is the hardest thing in human life. But there is something good about anguish. There is a bright side to anguish. And that is that often anguish is the sign that you are very close to resurrection. Breakdown is the surest sign that breakthrough is imminent. When we are at the point of breakdown, when we are at the lowest, hardest point, we have a good indication that breakthrough is right around the corner. We can look at Jesus' life as an example of this. Holy Thursday was on a whole a joyful night. Supper with all of his disciples, all but one of them just loving him and so grateful for him. and the beautiful intimacy of breaking the bread and sharing the wine and him washing their feet. But then the very next day was the lowest of the low. The disciples would have much preferred to stay with Holy Thursday than gone on to Good Friday. But Good Friday was actually closer to Easter. There was actually one step closer to Easter on Good Friday than there was on Holy Thursday. The breakthrough was much closer on the day of breakdown. Anguish feels awful, but for those of us who are anguishing in faith, it is the sign that breakthrough is around the corner. It's kind of like a glow stick. Did you ever play with a glow stick when you were a kid? A glow stick that's just sitting there in the package doesn't look like anything. First, you have to break it, and only then will it shine. A broken glow stick is the one that's about to shine. So there's a rule that we are meant to follow when we find ourselves in anguish. We hope we don't. We hope that we're beyond that. But you know what? Who knows what's around the corner in life? And we know that this is part of the human experience. When we're in anguish, there's two parts to one guideline. And the two parts are this. When you're in anguish, you need to not run from it. You need to not try to get around it or avoid it or pretend it's not happening. That will never work. You have to own it. But then the other part of the guideline is you own it, but you don't focus on it. You don't focus on the problem. You focus on the source of the help. That's exactly what we heard in the psalm today. Bless the Lord, my soul, who heals the brokenhearted. The person who wrote that psalm was in anguish. 1/3 of our psalms are about anguish, if you look through the 150 psalms in the Bible. 1/3 of them are all about anguish. But the people who wrote them always included, I may be in the pit, but I know, Lord, that you've got the power. I know that you have a plan for this. I know that when I get to the other side of this, I'll actually be grateful for all that I learned and found. And we see in the gospel that all it took was Jesus going over to the woman laying in bed and grasping her hand, and she was able to get up and immediately return to the best, most vibrant kind of health she'd ever had. So this week we are being invited to make a deal with God and with ourselves for the next time that we're in anguish. And the deal is to say, God, the next time this happens, I am going to bring it to you, and I am going to trust in you. I am not going to try to fix it myself. I'm not going to try to run from it. I'm not going to resign myself to it. I'm not going to blame you for it. I'm going to bring it to you and ask you to help. Most of us know the story of Job from that first reading. He was the one who had a great life and then everything fell apart. And his mistake was he blamed God for it. He was a righteous man and he believed in God so firmly that he said, well, this must be God's punishment. So I don't deserve this, so I'm mad at God. God, you shouldn't have done this to me. And he said, God, you should come down here face to face and tell me why you did that. And God did. And do you remember what God said? Job said, well, here you are, God. Why did you do all this to me? And God said, you wouldn't understand. And that was good enough, because Job met God. And once Job saw the beauty and power and wonder of God, he didn't need an answer. God is the answer. So let us go forth this week, whether we are in weal or woe, whether this is a great season of life or whether this is anguish for us. Let us go forth making a promise to ourselves and to God that the next time we find ourselves in the pit, we are going to bring it to the one who heals the brokenhearted. Because deep down, we are all just glow sticks. First, we got to break. But then, we will shine.